Welcome back. It's good to be back. And we thank you for sticking around with us here on Fumblegate. Had to take a couple of weeks off there. 2 weeks ago, I was moving into a new home. And then last week, I wasn't feeling too hot.
Yeah.
So had to take an extended bye. But we're glad to be back. And glad you were here with us again on November 14th. And we're feeling it outside. Already getting snow around here, which kind of sucks. But
yeah, like
what are you gonna do?
It's a little bit different. I am a little surprised that the rest of the tri-state, like, not realizing that it can snow this early here in the Midwest. But it is a little bit unnerving to be the single-digit wind chills already before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, kind of sucks. So, but anyway, good to have you folks back. And give us a follow on the Twitter. Our handles are at the bottom of the screen. And also give us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/Fumblegate. Drop a meme, drop a GIF, drop a comment. Tell us we're awesome. Tell us we suck.
Just talk to us. It's fun.
When my wife and I closed on our home, ran into a guy that you know there.
Yeah.
Adam Mansfield, who helped take care of closing on our home. So we thank him for that.
Yeah, not without a little drama, though, either.
Yeah, there was some stuff into it. And I'm not going to get into that here because it'll just get me pissed off again. And I don't want to be pissed off.
Yeah.
So there was some stuff that happened, but we eventually got taken care of. Thanks to Adam for that. He listens to the show. He said he was going to, as he watched, would drop some comments. He'd chat with us as we go along.
That'd be
probably
nice.
mainly would tell us. He said he would probably tell us, "Hey, you guys suck."
Yeah, that's
but
probably true.
But that's okay.
Yeah, Adam's
There's no such thing as bad publicity. But Adam's a nice guy. Got us taken care of. 360 American Title Services, I believe, is the company he's working for. So if you're in the Cincinnati area, need to close on a house, go see them. That's just a free plug, because they did such a great job taking care of my wife and I. So, anywho, let's get into the show, and a jam-packed show, as we always like to do for you here. We'll always have the kicker of the week, which he's got like 6 pages worth of notes for that.
Yeah, it's plenty of them this week. No shortage.
College football upset picks of the week, and also we'll make game picks in both college and the NFL. We're going to start in college football today, and everybody's talking about the Instant Classic. There you go. We're back in the swing of things.
My football's done too, so it makes it a little easier to have breakfast drinks.
Oh, Spartans, not so good.
Yeah, bad look for us.
Yeah, not too good. Here, drink up, buddy. So everybody else is talking about the classic between LSU and Alabama last Saturday, in which LSU goes into Bryant-Denny, beats Alabama 46-41. So LSU right now sitting at number 1 across the board, including the college football playoff rankings. And people wondering, and it's a valid question to this point because of the way he's played all year long and the way he lit up Alabama's defense. Alabama's defense is young this year compared to previous years that Nick Saban has had. But nevertheless, Joe Burrow was magnificent again. 31 of 39 for 393 and a whole bunch of touchdowns. At this point, he has to pretty much have a grip around the Heisman Trophy, does he not?
I think at this point it's his to lose, and if you look at the statistically, I don't know that there's anybody else within striking distance, given the quality of win, considering they're probably going to end up being the first place team in the college football playoff. And obviously the voting, the Heisman Trophy happens before the college football playoff. I don't think statistically anybody else is near him. And obviously beating Alabama on the road makes a huge statement win game for him. If you look at his last 3 games, he shouldn't have any trouble against Ole Miss, Arkansas, or Texas A&M. The SEC championship is going to be the last remaining hurdle in their season between them and being the number 1 seed for the college football playoff. We would assume that is going to be against Georgia. We've found throughout the season that maybe Georgia isn't quite as good as we thought they were. Obviously, they have a really bad loss earlier in the year. But anyway, back to Burrow statistically, leads the nation in percentage, completing 78.9, damn near 79% of his passes, which is just unheard of. He's second in yards at almost 3,200, 10.7 yards per attempt, 33 touchdowns, was the second nationally, and a 202 passer rating, which is complete made up metric bullshit, but it puts him third in the country. Everybody's held to the same metric, and it puts him third in the country.
Well, what's more bullshit? That passing efficiency rating or ESPN's QBR?
QBR, some guy with a degree who makes more money than we do came up with some metric to put all the numbers together. But anyway, I just don't see anything statistically. Anybody who's going to catch him, to me, the only other two guys that are probably going to sit in the room with him, or probably deserve to at this point, Tua missing the games is going to hurt him. Alabama now truly is not going to have a statement win on their resume. Auburn at the end of the year is probably going to end up being their only ranked opponent that they beat, because does not appear they're going to play in the SEC championship game, which means they're going to play in a bowl game, probably not the college football playoff. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But Jalen Hurts, you can look at his statistics. He's 500 yards short in passing. He's 9 TDs short. He does have he'll probably end up with over 1,000 yards rushing. So he'll end up at over 3,000 and 1,000 yards rushing and another 15 TDs there. But you're looking at an Oklahoma team that's going to be a one-loss conference championship champion, not the undefeated, number one seed. And then only for the homers here in Ohio, but the homers here in Ohio that want to complain about Fields not getting enough credit for what he's doing at Ohio State. But if you look at it statistically, 68% passing, only 1,859 yards. He does have 27 TDs to only one interception. But the argument is that he hasn't played full games, but that again becomes your Achilles heel, because if you're not playing full games and you're not putting up full numbers, I saw a statistic. He's only thrown between 21 and 25 passes in every game they've played. And to me, that's awesome. But the other part of that is look at what else everybody around him is doing to beat teams that are absolutely terrible. And we're going to talk about how bad the Big Ten is here later. We got in the America's favorite game, will they cover? We're going to talk about that here in a little bit, about how awesome the Big Ten is this year, particularly the bottom end of the Big Ten. But at this point, like I said, it's his to lose, and I don't see any of the last three games that are going to really come into play as far as the voting coming into play. Maybe the SEC championship game if he really, really struggles, but statistically he's going to be the best quarterback in the country on an undefeated team, and I don't see any way that he doesn't win the Heisman Trophy. This has become a quarterback only award. It's going to be a long time where there's going to have to be just a disgusting set of circumstances where someone besides a quarterback wins the Heisman Trophy. It's just, that's what the Heisman Trophy has been run to this point where the Heisman Trophy is only going to be awarded to a quarterback because they're the ones that get all the publicity and they're the ones that put up all the statistics, and that's just what it's become. And to me, I do miss a little bit of the most valuable player to their team, but at this point, it's hard to argue against Joe Burrow being the most valuable player on LSU's team, and I think it's his Heisman Trophy.
I think the issue with Justin Fields is the team has been so dominant. They have not needed him to go win football games. Now, their two best wins, Ohio State, is they blew out Wisconsin and they blew out Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Two good teams, not great teams, two good teams. They blew them both out. But in both those games, Ohio State was just so dominant all the way around, and that takes away a little bit from the individual award. You look at Joe Burrow, they don't beat Alabama without Joe Burrow doing what he does.
No.
They don't beat Florida without him doing what he did. They don't win at Texas without him doing what he did there as well. I think, for that reason, this is his to lose. And as you said, their schedule until the SEC championship is very, very friendly for them. Is it Ole Miss?
At Ole Miss, home for Arkansas, home for Texas A&M.
Okay, well, Arkansas just fired Chad Morris. So they're in complete shambles. Texas A&M has been quite a letdown, and Ole Miss is just kind of there.
Yeah, and statistically, Ole Miss is allowing something like close to 350 yards passing per game. So it should be a nice stat pattern. Now, we mentioned the same thing with Ohio State.
I'd put Chase Young in the room ahead of Justin Fields.
Yeah, well, the argument against Chase Young now is he's going to miss 2 games, and he's missing 2 games where he probably would have increased his sack statistics quite well.
Well, he's going to miss this week, and we'll talk about that. This is the first time today we're having a college edition of Will They Cover? So there you go.
And just real quick, while we're touching on the Chase Young situation, one, this goes back to now the NCAA is going to allow situations like this to happen, but suspending a kid for taking a loan and then in turn paying that loan back, you're idiots.
Well, it's just over a year ago that happened. So who ratted him out? My guess is the way Ohio State played this past week against Maryland, they thought somebody around Maryland ratted them out.
It could be true.
It was 42-0 late second quarter, and Ryan Day is calling timeouts to get the ball back to try and score more.
Yeah, they were.
That's the other crappy thing about that.
Yeah, it's really stupid, and again, credit to the NCAA for making the first steps towards allowing these kids to make money, but it's a bad situation for him. Unfortunately, it's not going to make a difference when it comes to getting drafted in the NFL. I know.
No.
So-called experts have him ranked.
He should be the number one. He should be the number one pick.
Again, and we talk about it all the time. It's going to depend on who's picking number one and what their biggest need is. If a team needs a quarterback at number one, then they're going to take a quarterback. Now, at this point, it looks like it's clearly going to be the Cincinnati Bengals picking at number one. And I think they've resigned themselves to the fact that they are going to need a quarterback at that point. But Chase Young is going to be very, very hard to pass up as the number one pick in the NFL draft at this juncture.
They'll screw up and they'll pass on him.
Well, the Bengals screw up a lot.
And in that situation, if you draft Joe Burrow, if you draft Tua Tagovailoa, if you draft Justin Herbert, it may very well work out. I'm not saying that, but right now, I don't see.
This could easily be a Jadeveon Clowney, Reggie Bush situation where
Thank you.
You passed on Reggie Bush and everybody's like, "Oh, I can't believe you passed on Reggie Bush." Well, Jadeveon Clowney's still playing the NFL and Reggie Bush is commentating for Fox Sports.
There you go. All right, so let's move to the other side of that game. Alabama takes the loss there. Tua was just coming back off the ankle surgery. Wasn't that great. 21 out of 40.
Yeah.
Throwing the ball. Had a couple long touchdown plays, which kind of inflates the yardage total. But now you look at Alabama, they're sitting at 5 right now in the CFP. They're behind Georgia, despite, I guess, they don't really factor in quality of loss, considering Georgia lost at home to South Carolina, who just got beat at home by Appalachian State. Don't get me wrong, Appalachian State's a very good team.
Yeah, Georgia's loss is looking worse and worse as we
But
go.
you could also say if the season ended right now, it would actually benefit Alabama because you'd have LSU playing Georgia in the SEC championship game. LSU wins it. Georgia goes bye-bye. Possibly Alabama slides in. I'm looking at this here. Alabama has a very, very difficult path back in to the CFP now, and the reason being is they haven't played anybody.
No,
Their best win is against Texas A&M, who is 6-3 right now.
Yeah, and at the time they were ranked 24th. Now, when you look at the schedule on the online, it still shows they beat number 24 Texas A&M, but clearly they're unranked right now. Alabama really, at this point, and we've talked about scenarios before for different teams. Alabama has to be fans of other teams losing.
They're rooting for Auburn now.
They're rooting for Auburn to be as best as they can by the time they get there, and then they also, in my opinion, they have to root against Oregon, they have to root against Oklahoma, and they have to root against even a team like Minnesota, because unfortunately for them, they're looking at teams that are going to play in a conference championship game, particularly Oregon and Oklahoma, probably going to play in the conference championship games. Assuming they win those, there'll be one loss.
Utah.
Yeah, there'll be one loss conference champions.
Yep.
And unfortunately for Alabama, at this point, it doesn't look like they're going to play in the conference championship at all. Nope. So you're not going to have that conference champion tag with your one loss. Because I think we could all assume that LSU is not going to lose to one of these last three teams.
You wouldn't think.
Oklahoma or Alabama, and in turn, Alabama still is out because LSU owns the head-to-head advantage, assuming that LSU doesn't lose to 2 out of the 3, which clearly probably is not going to happen. They even got to hope for Minnesota to start to lose at this point, I think, because if Minnesota plays in the conference championship game and somehow beats Ohio State, I don't know if Ohio State's resume is worse. Ohio State's resume looks better than Arkansas or Alabama's does.
It does.
Hashtag Fumblegate. like there's so many scenarios they have to hope for. Now, we've seen it happen already in college football. We talked about the Notre Dame scenarios that Notre Dame needed teams to lose for them to get back in with one loss, and then they go out and crap the bed against Michigan, and now they're a 2-loss team that's never getting in. There are a lot of different scenarios that need to happen, but for Alabama, I think this is it. I don't think they have a path back, because assuming that Clemson stays undefeated, which I don't think there's any question that's going to happen. Assuming that at worst Ohio State is playing in the Big Ten championship game, I think they win it and remain undefeated anyway. But assuming at worst they play in it and somehow lose to an undefeated Minnesota team at the same time, I think their resume still looks better. And then Oklahoma and Oregon winning out and winning their conference championship games, they still look better. And somehow Georgia beats LSU in the conference championship game. Then you have a one-loss SEC champion and a team that has one loss that already beat you. So I don't know what the scenario is that Alabama gets back in unless somehow like 4 other teams end up with 2 losses. I don't see them getting back into the playoffs.
It's so hard to figure out, and you look at the things that are going forward. As I said, Alabama needs Auburn to keep winning. Auburn hosts Georgia this Saturday. That is a monster one. And for Alabama fans, you need Auburn to win this game.
Yeah, Auburn has to be the best team possible when they get to the Iron Bowl for it to help Alabama's resume.
What I also think right now has happened, and you touched on them a second ago, I think they need Oregon to keep winning right now because Auburn beat Oregon.
I agree.
So it's the third proxy there. Now maybe you could eventually make the case to have Oregon get to the Pac-12 championship and then lose to Utah, but then you have Utah would be, in that theory, a one-loss Pac-12 champion.
Yeah.
Would they move ahead of Alabama? I think they probably would.
I think any one-loss conference champion stays ahead of a team that didn't even play in the conference championship game. And these scenarios have happened before, and we'll see how they work out. But yeah, it's going to be really difficult for the committee to put an Alabama team that didn't even play in the conference championship game over any one-loss championship team. And again, we're assuming Clemson remains undefeated, and we're assuming LSU remains undefeated. So you have 2 more spots, and to not give those 2 conference champions from other leagues and give it to an Alabama instead. Now, you're going to have a bunch of SEC fans who are elated about it, but I have a hard time believing that the college football playoff is going to allow something like that to happen with a one-loss Pac-12 champ, with a one-loss Big 12 champ, and possibly a one-loss Big 10 champion, all getting skipped to put Alabama back in the playoff. Now, you can look at past history and say, hey, Alabama might deserve to be there, and they only have a 5-point loss to what we assume is going to end up being the number 1 team in the country. But again, not playing in the conference championship makes a difference when it comes to the giant committee. It makes a difference.
Well, and look at I think the biggest thing that's going to hold back Alabama, maybe not necessarily the fact that they're not going to play in the SEC championship. It's look at their schedule.
Yeah,
I mean, go look at. Let's go through some of this.
Bad. It is not a strong schedule.
Duke, New Mexico State, who I just still don't think has won a game.
They have not won a game. Because the Chippewas beat them too.
South Carolina,
not so good.
They did beat Georgia. Southern Miss, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. That's their one marquee win. Tennessee,
an unranked team.
Tennessee,
who's somehow scraping by.
They're improving, but they're
getting
still
better. They're not
a long way
to
to
go.
go.
In the top 25 though.
Arkansas,
awful.
They just lost to LSU. Now their final 3 games. This coming Saturday, they're at Mississippi State. Should take care of business there.
Shouldn't be an issue.
Damn cowbells and ugh. Then, as they always do, the week before they play Auburn, they play an absolute scrub, and they're going to play Western Carolina.
The Catamounts. Big shout out to the Catamounts.
So their non-conference schedule is Duke, New Mexico State, Southern Miss, and Western Carolina. That is going to be their problem as far as them not making the college football playoff, is they scheduled absolutely nobody in the non-conference.
Yeah, I would guess that between those teams, because we know New Mexico State hasn't won a game. I believe Western Carolina has 3 wins this season, but they are an FBS school. I would guess that there's not even 10 wins total between their 4 off-season or their 4 out-of-conference games. And I saw something the other day. You're laughing at the chat.
Brian Sullivan here is trying to be wearing the SEC hat, saying the 4 in should be LSU, Bama, Georgia, and Florida. The next 2 in, Auburn and Tennessee. Good on you there, Brian.
You know who agrees with you? Our boy from the Twitter. I can't remember the SEC guy from Twitter who's the troll, and I can't remember his tag.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people in SEC country probably agree with you. We, however, disagree.
I'm in SEC country, and I do not agree in any way, shape, or form. Alabama, they'll probably make a New Year's Six bowl.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But they're not. I just don't see it unless a bunch of teams start losing.
Yeah. They're going to need a bunch of 2-loss teams.
They need LSU to run the table, number one, because it makes their loss to them look even better.
Yep.
And then they need a bunch of help otherwise. I don't see it this year for Alabama to get into the playoffs.
Which is surprising to say because earlier in the year.
And the committee is going to give them every chance because they know Alabama means ratings, means money.
And they know how they perform in the college football playoff. Like Alabama performs well in the college football playoff, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting. The Twitter handle I was thinking of was the 3-year Letterman.
Oh yeah, that's right.
3-year Letterman definitely agrees with Brian Sullivan's assessment of who should be in.
Let's move on to some game picks for this week, and we're going to go outside of the SEC here, although Georgia-Auburn, that is a big one, so watch that if you can. Georgia at Auburn. And so, again, Bama fans, you need Auburn to win.
Yes.
So if you beat them in 3 weeks, it looks better, or 2 weeks, I guess you should say, after you play Western Carolina.
Yeah, the warm-up game against the Catamounts.
Go Catamounts. All right, let's go to the Big Ten. Your boy row the boat.
Yeah.
Beating Penn State. And now they've climbed up to 8th in the rankings, the college football playoff rankings. That's what we're going by here. They're 9-0.
Yeah.
And they're at Iowa.
First time since 1904.
That's right.
Good for them.
115 years. The first time they've been 9-0. They're going to Iowa. Are they going to 10-0?
I think they are. Does
it hurt you to say that?
You know what?
Are you starting to be less pissed off at him because he coached at Western?
Yeah, and I always thought he was a good football coach, and now I didn't like him as a rival. I appreciate what he does. I appreciate PJ Fleck, and I appreciate the quality of football coach he is, and this I think we would both agree this is probably his last year with the Golden Gophers.
He just signed a new 7-year contract. Yeah, come on, man.
You see why they signed the 7-year contract? Because it upped his buyout to $10 million. His buyout went from $2.5 to $10 million. Minnesota wants to make sure.
Florida State will Venmo him that.
Exactly. But Minnesota wants to make sure that they're getting paid when he takes a new job. He's already been rumored for the USC job, too. And if they can't get after Urban Meyer, he's been rumored for that one as well.
I think it's Luke Fickell's job.
I think it is too, but I think this is the last season that we're going to row the boat up in Minnesota, and credit to him, and similar to what he did at Western Michigan, he's changed the culture there, and made Minnesota back into a school that's respectable, obviously in the Big Ten. I wouldn't want to play him right now. I'll tell you that much right now. They any chance he goes down, Brian Sullivan has to do. I don't think Brian Kelly loses his job. I think Brian Kelly gets the job at Notre Dame in perpetuity. If they win 10 games a year, he's staying at Notre Dame. I think. I don't see a scenario where Brian Kelly leaves Notre Dame.
I'm wondering at some point if Notre Dame, and again, I'm with you as far as the wins that he's piling up.
Yeah.
But then it gets into like a Michigan type situation where, are you okay with winning 9 and 10 and maybe once in a while with Notre Dame, and that's because they've made it getting into the college football playoff.
Closer than
they got into the college football playoff a couple of years ago. They got run by Clemson. So he's a little closer than Harbaugh is to the playoff. But if Notre Dame still thinks it's like the be-all, end-all in college football, you have to really evaluate, is Brian Kelly going to be the guy going for the long haul? Now, like I said, he's been to the college football playoff, played for the national championship once.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's like I said, he's closer than Harbaugh. That would be an intriguing one. I think
if
that would be a
job is open. Yes,
that would be a
I just don't think it's
situation.
open.
I don't know that it is either, and I think it would be a situation where you'd probably be asking Brian Kelly more so to retire as opposed to fire
you're going to
him.
ask him to step away because I don't know if you. I think
He hasn't done anything there that's worthy of being fired.
No, I mean, well, your opportunity to fire him was when he killed the kid by putting him up on the lift, but. They paid that family off, and that got swept under the rug real quick. But I don't see this. If that job was open, which I don't think it will be, if that job was open, you have to seriously consider PJ Fleck.
He's called number one,
considering his Midwest ties and being a Northern Illinois guy from the Midwest. He coached in Michigan, now he's coached in Minnesota. He's kind of got a lock on Midwest recruiting right now. I think you have to call him. I just don't think it's going to happen. Yeah. Anyway, back to rowing the boat. Iowa, again, is what Iowa does, and they grind stuff out, and then they got a loss to a really bad Michigan team who does look a little bit better after beating Notre Dame a couple weeks ago.
They got Sparty this week, who looks like garbage.
Yeah, again, talking about the bottom end of the Big Ten right now, just absolutely awful.
How about Sparty blowing a 3-touchdown lead at home to Illinois?
Oh, yeah, people going nuts for Brian Lewerke's head, and is it time for D'Antonio to get out of there? They just can't figure out how to play offense efficiently.
They gave him the vote of confidence.
I know, the vote of confidence. We all know how that usually ends up.
Means next year he's fired.
Yep, we'll see.
Anyway, back to this one here. You like Minnesota?
I got to row the boat. In fact, this is actually one of my upset picks of the week, but we jumped ahead. We're going to talk about it ahead of time. Minnesota actually a 3-point dog on the road at Iowa, which is how you install a home point favorite. So we're gonna assume that Vegas is calling this an even, but I got Minnesota going to Iowa and winning this one. They're playing with extreme confidence. Some people might say this could be a letdown game. I don't think PJ Fleck allows that kind of scenario just because of the way he coaches. Yeah. And two, nothing is impressive about Iowa. Like nothing. Minnesota shows they got the big play offense. They can go out and score points. Iowa can't. Iowa cannot play from behind.
Your boy at left tackle for Minnesota.
Minnesota's left tackle is 400 pounds.
6'9", 400 pounds.
Found this guy in Australia roaming the streets.
You actually watched this game against Penn State and saw he can move.
Yeah, he's not a bad athlete. Their offensive line averages 340 across the front. Now, obviously, you're inflated a little bit, but
who cares?
If you want somebody banging, I don't mind Minnesota's offensive line banging against Iowa, who the cornbread, whatever the scenario is, whatever you want to call it. Usually this is a smash mouth Big Ten type game. I like Minnesota. I like their big play offense. I like what PJ Fleck's doing up there. I hate to say row the boat, but they're rowing up there in Minnesota, and again, might be the last season they're rowing the boat up there. We'll see if he takes it with him. I don't know. Any of the next jobs he goes to probably have a little more football tradition than Minnesota. I don't know if he's taking row the boat to USC. I think Fight On's pretty well entrenched there.
He can make it like a secondary thing.
He could, but I think they let Minnesota keep the row the boat after this one.
Minnesota wins 31-28 to go to 10-0.
10-0, and again the scenario lays up because they got Minnesota at home to end the season, and then the Big Ten championship game. Don't be surprised if the Golden Gophers are playing against Ohio State, undefeated versus undefeated in the Big Ten championship game.
And then they'll get run.
They will probably get run. But you know what?
It's a great story.
For a team that has traditionally been a 4 or 5 win school.
When has Minnesota been known for anything other than hockey?
Exactly.
It's fun.
It's awesome.
It's
and again,
fun.
I questioned it a little bit when PJ Fleck went there because I thought he was a bit deserving of a higher level job after taking the Broncos to the Cotton Bowl. I thought a little bit higher than Minnesota, but
turns out he made the right move.
Turns out he made the right move for him and his family, and he's going to make the right move for his career as well.
Yes,
so good for him.
Let's move on to the Big 12. Another cool story here. The Baylor Bears, they're still hanging on. They had to go to overtime last week to beat TCU. But they are 9-0, and nobody saw that coming before the year started.
Certainly not with what happened to them recently and the sanctions that were levied against them by the NCAA.
Right.
Really weren't that great of a football team before that, and everybody thought they were going to fall off. And turns out Baylor can still play some football.
I wouldn't
They
be
don't
surprised.
suck.
Wouldn't be surprised if some NFL teams don't call Matt Rule and see what can we get you out of Waco?
Yeah, he looks pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
They're 9-0. They're still trying to keep themselves afloat. They're going to have to run the table if they want any shot at the playoff. But to do that, they've got to beat Oklahoma this week, and Oklahoma has not looked great the last couple of weeks. The loss to Kansas State, that's one thing, and then trying to blow it against Iowa State, who went for 2 in the waning seconds to try to beat Oklahoma there. Their defense, as we've seen through the years with Lincoln Riley, is nothing special.
No, they don't exactly like playing defense in Oklahoma. Now they don't have to because they're putting up almost 600 yards of total offense. But Baylor's scoring and putting up points too, and their defense is a tinge better.
That's the thing that Baylor's winning. They're winning with defense this year. They're only giving up, 19 points a game?
Yeah, 19 points a game.
This far this year. I think they're going to give up a lot more than that. I have Oklahoma winning this game comfortably. I have the Sooners winning this one 48-34.
Yeah,
and I know it's in Waco, but I think Oklahoma wins this game.
It's just
easily.
one of those eye test deals, and you see Baylor, and again, I'll readily admit I haven't watched very much Baylor football this year, but you just see the results, and you see what they're doing and how they're winning. Triple overtime win against TCU, double overtime win against Texas Tech, like. Nothing jumps out at you and says, wow, this is really a team to be reckoned with. They're just not. The eye test says that Oklahoma's the better team, and I'm going to go with the eye test. I just think Oklahoma now, with Alabama's loss, sees their path back. They have to win out for them to have a scenario where they get into the college football playoff. I still think that's a likely scenario. Obviously, still some tough road tests for both. I mean, all 3 teams, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Minnesota, what we assume to be ahead of Alabama right now. But I like Oklahoma, especially giving them a window back into the college football playoff. I like Oklahoma in this one. Again, Baylor just still not passing the eye test for me.
This would be a good win on Oklahoma's resume. Not going to hurt. Not going to be a great win, but it'll be a good win on their resume. I think Oklahoma wins this one comfortably. As I said, Baylor's been a great story all year. This may be a little bit above their punching weight right now.
A little bit above their pay grade.
I'd love to be wrong, and I'd be curious to see where Baylor goes from there if
Baylor wins, because they and we talked about this earlier in the season. We talked about the Big 12 scenarios. They finish home in Oklahoma, home versus Texas, home and home against 2 ranked teams, and then again finishing with Kansas, who one would assume they would win that game, but could be an undefeated Big 12 champion. Yeah. And the scenario then becomes, can an undefeated Big 12 champion in Baylor somehow sneak in over what could be a 1-loss undefeated team, just given strength of resume? And I think these 2 games are the games that make a difference for them, because it would give them two ranked wins down the stretch. Now it'll be their only 2 ranked wins, but it gives them their 2 ranked wins down the stretch. And going into the College Football Playoff Committee, this is Baylor's window where they really have to impress by winning these 2 games.
This is their audition, and I just don't see them passing.
I don't think they do either. But this is their opportunity these next 2 weeks to show their resume.
Okay, so now you've seen over the past number of weeks on the show, we've always done when we pick the games for the NFL, we always like to poke fun at the teams that are awful. And for a time, it was the multiple winless teams. Now it's just the Bengals, and we would do it.
The 2-game winning streak Miami Dolphins decided they want to start playing football all of a sudden, going up into Indy last week and beating Jacoby Brissett and the Colts.
No, he was out.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. He was out.
Brian Hoyer
starting the game for the Colts.
But in either case, if you've noticed here on the show, we normally don't do like betting lines or the will they cover for college football because it's amateur athletics, and that's why I've decided for the longest time not to include it. But this one's just too good not to include this week, so we're going to debut the college football edition of Will They Cover. And Adam touched on it a moment ago, and here you go. Ohio State, as we've said, they've bludgeoned everybody they've played thus far on the year. They're 9-0. They're going to Rutgers. We all know what Rutgers is and what they're not, and what they're not is a Big Ten football program. I'd argue maybe not even an FBS football program.
Yeah, they ain't good.
No. So Ohio State is headed to Rutgers, to New Jersey. They're a 52-point favorite.
Yeah.
52!
Yeah, that is unbelievable.
52-point road favorite. They're going to cover, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, How could they not?
Are they going to cover by halftime?
They might cover by halftime too. Like nothing about this game is like, oh yeah, Rutgers has a chance. 100%.
If Chase Young was playing, do you think it would get closer to the spread? Would be closer to 60?
It probably would. Like if you look at the scenarios that Chase Young against Rutgers offensive line. Right now, Rutgers is terrible. Like they are really, really bad.
Does Justin Fields play the second half?
No. He doesn't, and I think at this point, the whole scenario of him having a chance at the Heisman Trophy is out the window. Joe Burrow, like we talked about, hasn't locked up, so there's no reason to pad stats in this one. They might score as many points on defense as they do on offense in this game. I don't know that Rutgers is going to move. If Rutgers has over 250 total yards, I would be astonished.
Who scores more, Rutgers or Ohio State's defense?
Ohio State's defense, or special teams.
Okay, we'll count that.
Ohio State scores more non-offensive points than Rutgers scores in this game. It's probably going to be some stupid number.
This is a game you should have done a score for.
I know. I wish
you should have done a score for this one. I'm doing one. I say Ohio State wins 63-7.
You're going to give them 7?
I'll give them
that's
7.
That's astonishing.
I'll give them 7.
You're giving them closer to the line.
They'll have their starters playing against Ohio State's fourth string in the third.
Ohio State's first of all, it's a road game, so Ohio State can only travel 60 kids anyway. So the number of kids who can play, or it might be less than that. Anyway, Ohio State's walk-ons are better than Rutgers.
I know.
Like they're going to be playing some walk-ons.
Blind squirrel, my friend. Blind squirrel.
Well, yeah, I guess maybe
you should have done a score for this one.
Ohio State's fourth-string quarterback decides to throw it straight to the starter from Rutgers, and he takes it back for a touchdown. Because I don't know if their offense scores.
I wonder if Gunnar Hoke still likes the fact that he transferred from Kentucky to Ohio State.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Because he would have been Kentucky's starter right now because Terry Wilson's out, and now he's Ohio State's third string. Nevertheless, he made a decision, thought it was best for him.
Some guys just don't stick around at Ohio State. Ask Joe Burrow.
Well, it worked out.
Worked out again for Joe Burrow.
It worked out for him. And by the way, LSU has said their offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, they're willing to pay him NFL money to keep him.
I would.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, if we're going to look at the resume of him, I would pay him the money.
There you go. Ohio State's a 52-point favorite at Rutgers. They're going to cover. They may even cover by halftime. I may watch that one just to get a good laugh in.
Yeah, that scenario is not out of the realm.
I may watch a little bit of it. I have 2 football games to call on Saturday, so I'm going
to be at my upset pick of the week this week.
Who's your upset pick of the week, Adam?
Of course, it's the Chippewas. Chippewas are a road dog to the Ball State Cardinals.
They're bowl eligible. Congratulations.
They are, yes. Biggest turnaround in college football thus far. Most increase in wins in college football. 5 more wins than last season already with 2 left to play.
How many wins did they have last year?
1. This year they got 6 already. And the win last year was...
Get an inflatable shark up there for Jim McElwain. He did a hell of a job.
It was 17-14 win against Maine last year.
Oh, yeah. FCS Maine.
Yeah, winning one game.
You didn't beat an FBS program last year.
No.
Yeah,
but this
year what a freaking homer.
Yeah,
You're such a homer.
Bomb.
You're such a homer. We'll ignore the fact Kentucky lost to Tennessee this week.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
We won't worry about that, but go ahead, Homer.
No, Chippewas are a road dog. For some reason, we can't find anybody to beat Western Michigan because we couldn't do it, so we can't find anybody to beat Western Michigan.
But at least they wore those awful uniforms.
God, they went with the shit and piss uniforms again. Every time I question, maybe I should have went to Western. I would have had more success when I was a college football player. I remember that their colors at the time were literally shit and piss. Brown and yellow. Whoever came up with that color scheme for a college sports athletics program to go with the brown and yellow. I agree. It's a terrible color scheme, though. I don't care who wears it. It's a bad color scheme. I wouldn't want to wear around a bunch of brown shit every day. It's just dumb. But they went with the throwbacks. Jason texted me and he's like, "Oh, Western's got the brown uniforms on." I said, "Are they with the piss yellow?" And he's like, "No, they were wearing the gold because I was out with football practice or my son's basketball or something, so I didn't see it ahead of time." But yeah, glad they at least didn't go with the true brown and yellow. They went with brown and gold for the throwback. But yeah, Chippewas still have a scenario where they can get into the MAC championship game. They obviously got to win their last 2 against Ball State and Toledo. This one starts this week. They go on the road, upset Ball State. I will be at the game with my sons. The side effect of not still playing in high school football playoffs is now I get an opportunity to go watch my alma mater. I would much rather be coaching this weekend than watching, but because I can't coach, I do get a chance to go watch Chippewas, take my boys, watch the Chippewas this weekend. I got Central beating Ball State on the road. My other one, obviously, was also Minnesota, with a 3-point road dog against Iowa. I still got Minnesota beating Iowa as well.
My upset pick, I'm going to have Missouri beat 11th-ranked Florida. Ooh. Games in Columbia, Missouri. It's an environment. It's a noon kickoff, I think. I think it's a noon kickoff. In that case, it's an 11 a.m. kickoff in Missouri. And it's not an environment that it's exactly conducive to high-octane energy, if you will. It's not exactly an intimidating environment.
Yeah.
Go back to that.
Oh, wait, did we miss it?
Yep, right there. Yep, noon kickoff there.
Yep,
So it's an
noon
11 a.m.
kickoff.
It's an 11 a.m. kickoff. It's an awkward place to go for Florida. And so for that reason and that reason alone, we'll see if Kelly Bryant plays for Missouri. He didn't play last week. Missouri's kind of face-planted after their nice start earlier in the year. And but I think they'll bounce back here, and they'll beat Florida and kill Florida's chances of getting to the SEC championship. They needed Georgia to start losing anyway. This officially wipes them out. So I'm going to say Missouri beats 11th-ranked Florida. If it was in Gainesville, this would not be my upset pick of the week because it's in Columbia at 11 a.m. kickoff local time. I'm going to say that Mizzou takes down Florida, and it wouldn't shock me if Florida blows out Missouri because, like I said, Missouri is kind of face-planted over the last several weeks. They've lost 3 in a row.
Yeah.
So they've not been good the last few weeks. But I'll say they'll bounce back and they'll beat Florida. Why? For the hell of it.
Who knows? Whatever. Let's give it a run.
Yeah, speaking of giving it a run, he's going to run over some kickers right now with the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week. And strap in, folks. This may take some time.
I know we missed a couple weeks. Jason sent me one. There was, 10 field goals missed in the same game?
Last week, I think it was William and Mary versus Elon. There were 9 missed kicks between the teams.
9 missed field goals.
And one of the teams used 3 kickers, and they combined to go like 1 for 7.
Yeah, it was just too bad scenario. Sorry we couldn't be on air for that one. But we got a huge list on this week.
He does have a big list.
We didn't miss out on this one.
No.
Western Colorado's Chandler Davis missed from 41 and 22 trained monkey range. They lose to New Mexico Highlands 24-22. Waynesburg 1-8 Waynesburg's Mike Ryle missed from 35 in the fourth quarter. They end up losing to undefeated Case Western Reserve, number 15th ranked Case Western Reserve. They end up losing 1-8 senior day. Got a chance to beat the undefeated 15th ranked Case Western Reserve. They lose 27-24 because he missed a 35-yarder in the fourth quarter. Lots of fourth quarter misses this week. Northwestern's Charlie Kubender, he missed from 32 with 2:30 left, lose to Purdue 24-22. University of South Alabama's Frankie Onetti. Nat, I don't know. Pronounce it however you want. He's a kicker. Who gives a shit? He missed from 28. Trained monkey range, 28 yards, 1:08 left in the game. They lose to Texas State 30-28. Ooh, that 3 points would have made a big difference with a minute left. The Bills' NFL appearance. Bills' Stephen Hauschka missed from 34 at the end of the first half. 53 at the end of the game. Now, 53 is not a slouch field goal, but NFL, those are makeable ones. They lose to the Browns 19-16. The Bills, I don't know. They still look pretty good. 6-2 ain't bad. Or 7. What is it?
6-3.
6-3. I'm sorry.
6-3
Not
now.
bad. In position to get themselves a
should be
wild
7-2
card playoff. Should be 7-2. Could easily argue they could be winning the division right now because they save a blocked punt. They would have beaten the Patriots in week 3. Could be winning the division right now. Who saw that one coming? By the way, I saw the Vegas odds for winning that division. The Patriots at this point in the season are prohibitive 1 to 10,000 odds to win the division.
There's gonna
Not 10,000 to 1.
The
1
sad
to
thing
10,000.
is you're going to have some morons that will bet on that.
Yeah, somebody will put down $10,000 to win 100. Good luck with that one. Anyway, Valparaiso's Demetrius Latsonis.
What do you care?
Some Greek name. Who cares? When the game is tied 14-14, he missed from 47 and then 23 trained monkey range. And then they were down 6. He misses again from 36. Now, to keep this in perspective, that was 3 straight possessions. 3 possessions in a row, missed from 47, 23, and 36. 2 of them while being tied. Third one while being down 6 because somehow Morehead State missed their extra point.
Because of course they did.
Because of course they did. They end up losing to Morehead State 27-21. 9 points left on the board. 47, really the only one that should be difficult there. The trained monkey range one. Again, when you were tied 14-14, would have taken the lead. 3
possessions in a row.
3 possessions in a row. Why you keep trotting your field goal kicker out? At some point,
You gotta have a backup.
I think I'd go for it.
Let your punter try.
Oh,
Or go for it.
We got now a good one here. The Campbell Fighting Camels.
That's right.
The Fighting Camels from Campbell. Colin Gary missed from 38, first drive of the game. They lose to Kennesaw State 38-35. Cornell's Nicholas Knoll missed from 44. They lose to Penn 21-20. Ooh, 3 points, 1 point difference. That sucks. East Tennessee State's Tyler Keltner missed from 30 in regulation. They lose to Western Carolina 23-20 in overtime. Salve Virginia, Angelos DeSantos missed an extra point in regulation. They lose in overtime to Husson 29-26. Most weeks, this one's going to be the winner, especially because this is a repeat offender. Alcorn State's Corey McCullough has made an appearance before on the
worst
appearance.
The worst appearance of all time.
Worst appearance of all time. He is a previous winner, which is why he's not winning this week, only because he's a previous winner and because we found the same scenario in a different game. He missed from 47 to end regulation. End of the game, missed from 47. Goes to overtime, misses from 33. They lose to Grambling 19-16. Again, Alcorn State's Corey McCullough, repeat offender, has appeared on the show before. Possibly the worst kicker ever. But he doesn't win this week because North Greenville's Matt Gravely missed from 47 to end regulation, from 33 in overtime. If the stats sound familiar, they are, because it's the exact same kicks that Corey McCullough missed. They lose to Florida Tech 17-14. And for that reason, Matt Gravely, North Greenville, you are this week's winner of the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week.
Division 2.
So
we're spreading the love.
All divisions. We got NFL 1, FCS, FBS. We got Division 2. We got Division 3. The Western Colorado team makes an appearance. The Fighting Camels make an appearance.
The overriding point here is
we will find you.
Yes.
We'll find you. I will go down that rabbit hole and find you.
You actually said those very words to me.
Yes, like I told Jason that last night when I was looking up some stats. He had sent me a couple over the weekend. We had four kickers already going into last night.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to explore the rabbit hole. I go to the Division 2, Division 3 tab, and I start looking at games, and I see overtime losses, and I say, you know what? I'm going to find the box scores for those. And because of that, we find Matt Gravely from North Greenville Division 2 school, this week's winner of the Kicker of the Week.
Couldn't find a picture of him actually in action or to see his arms to see if he had weak arms or whatever. Because I know there was one kicker he looks like a kicker.
Yeah, skinny arms. I should have looked up his number. He probably wears like 73 or something stupid like that.
I think it's in the 40s.
Dumbass kicker. Miami won the other night with a 52-yarder from their kicker who wears number 79. I felt a little disappointed. That was my high school number, 79 for the kicker. But he won the game at 52-yarder. Hurt me a little bit.
So what?
Hurt me a little bit because I didn't want it to happen. By the way, Chuck Martin up there at Miami, I went and watched their spring practice, thought they might struggle a little bit this year. They're bowl eligible. Good for them, Miami Redhawks.
Okay, go Redhawks.
Yeah, I like Chuck Martin. We have a little relationship with them. He's friends with my high school coach. He's a Grand Valley guy, Brian Kelly guy.
There you go.
Knows my high school coach very well. Has a lake house on Lake Michigan up in Michigan. So good guy. Coaches in flip-flops, though. I'm a big flip-flop guy. Can't coach in flip-flops, though. Just can't do it. I don't know how he does it. Division I football coach, coaches in flip-flops. Good for him. Chuck Martin, Miami Redhawks.
And you complain about your O lineman wearing sleeves.
Yeah. Guess what? We played. It was like 22 degrees at kickoff on Friday.
Yeah.
Guess what? Only one of them wore sleeves. 4 out of the 5 guys no sleeves.
Did you give him shit for that?
No, he's a really good athlete, and I feel bad. He's going to Yale. He's a smart kid. Chris Ward.
Okay.
Going to Yale.
All right.
All conference kid. He's going to Yale. 35 ACT. He's going to do track.
He's already made more money than
he's going to graduate from Yale with a 6-figure job. He'll be okay. You know what? And he used to be a D lineman, so I'll allow it.
Let's go to the NFL, and a big piece of news happens this week, and we're still trying to figure out all the logistics around it.
Well, less than 48 hours ago, this was announced, and it's become the talk of the week. It really kind of overshadowed the rest of the week. But
the NFL has set up a workout for Colin Kaepernick with all 30 and all 32 teams have been invited to attend. They're setting up for him this Saturday at the Atlanta Falcons training facility. This, after a long, arduous process for Colin Kaepernick, and we've talked about this before here on the show. We won't get into the politics side of this because that goes down an entirely different rabbit hole, and we don't want that to be part of the show. But sticking with the football side of things here, Colin Kaepernick will get his chance to work out in front of the NFL. It's under very interesting circumstances and a very interesting scenario in which he is working out for the teams, but nevertheless, he will finally have his day to show teams that he is capable of playing, to show them he still wants to play. By all accounts, he still wants to play and is very open to playing and doing whatever is necessary to get back into the league. Adam, let me get your overall thoughts on this, and then any inkling as to if he indeed will get signed by anybody.
You know what? Here's the deal, and this is there's a lot. So there's a lot going on here. I'll talk about what I think about the scenario, and then at the end I'll answer the question. Here's the deal for me, and this is why this is a little confusing. Why now? Why this time? Why now? And if you look at the situation surrounding this and how this was set up, it begs the question of what is the NFL trying to do? What are they being preemptive about? Because to me, this reeks of something was about to happen, and the NFL is trying to alleviate the pressure of what was going to happen. And here's why. You look at the scenario in the report from Colin Kaepernick's camp, and even the NFL, who will readily admit that this scenario is how this happened. He was told Tuesday that the league was going to set up a workout for him. Unbeknownst to him, unbeknownst to his representation, on Tuesday, they call Colin Kaepernick's representation, say, we're going to set up a workout for you on Saturday. Take it or leave it. You have 2 hours to respond. Something about that stinks. And so within those 2 hours, Colin Kaepernick's camp says, hey, we would rather not do it 5 days from now or 4 days from now.
On a Saturday.
On a Saturday in the middle of the season. Can we do it on the next Tuesday? Give us a week instead of 4 days. Give us a week.
Well, and why would they ask for that?
The significance of that is Tuesday is a majority of teams. Tuesday is the day off, depending on if you happen to be playing on Thursday or if you're the Monday night game, whatever. Tuesday is the day off for, at a minimum, 28 of the 32 teams. Tuesday is a day off, which allows head coaches, GMs, scouting departments, whoever it is, to devote someone to go watch this workout. Here's why this scenario stinks to me and why I question it. Look at the number of things that are off the table at this point. This is after the trade deadline. So a team that signs him doesn't have the ability to trade any player that he would replace on the roster. It is 3 years down the road after Colin Kaepernick has already settled a lawsuit with the NFL in which the NFL essentially said that they had blackballed him. The settlement was supposed to alleviate that and allow him to not be blackballed by the league anymore and open it up for workouts for him. Now, any team in the league has been allowed to invite him for an individual workout, which has not happened. So I understand that point of it. But you are making it on the least convenient time for an NFL franchise to come watch him because I think save two teams, everyone else is playing this weekend. Saturday is the worst time because every team is traveling, which means anyone who's a decision maker is on a plane to wherever that game is being played. So what's going to happen? A low-level scout at best is going to come from, at a minimum, half the teams, or maximum half the teams will send a low-level scout.
Who has no authority.
Who has no authority to make any decisions.
Yeah.
Now, the entire thing will be videotaped, and every team, I'm sure, will, at a minimum, peek at the tape. Everyone will take a look at it. He's also been told that he is going to have to field questions after the workout. Now, that is assumed, given his history, it's assumed that he was going to have to answer questions. But the NFL has dictated everything that is going to happen in this scenario, leaving Kaepernick and his representation very little margin for them controlling anything. Now, I'm assuming they're going to allow him to do the things he wants to do at that workout, which for those of you who may not know is going to be some sort of combine-style throwing progression. He will have receivers. I'm assuming that he gets to bring his own receivers, or at least they are going to let him throw with them ahead of time. It will be very interesting to see what they actually allow him to do. But something about this just stinks to me. And the reason I think it stinks is I think the NFL is in fear of another lawsuit because of the first lawsuit that was settled saying essentially the NFL admitting to blackballing Colin Kaepernick. I think because he has not had a workout in front of a franchise since then, they are prepared to file another lawsuit saying, hey, listen, you said I wasn't getting blackballed. Now it's 3 years later. I'm still getting blackballed. So the NFL says, hey, you know what? You're not getting blackballed. Here's a workout for you. Everybody can come in. They're all invited. I don't buy it. Something stinks. Something's going on. So that's my thoughts on the entire process. Does he get signed from this? I want to say yes, but I'm going to say no because of the scenario. Because they're not allowing this to be a little bit more on Colin Kaepernick's terms, no one's going to have anyone important there. No one's going to be able to ask pertinent questions. Answering questions for scouts is much different than answering questions for GMs, much different than answering questions for head coaches, much different than answering questions for owners. Nobody's going to send anybody important. And it's not because Colin Kaepernick isn't on people's radars. It's because the NFL has made it so that no one's going to send anybody important because it's the least convenient day of the week to send anyone important. The only team I think who's going to have anybody above a normal scout there is the Atlanta Falcons. And I don't think they need a quarterback. Now, they're still employing Matt Schaub, who's been around forever, and Matt Ryan hasn't looked great this season, and who knows what's happening with Atlanta in general. But because it's at their facility, they're probably the only team that's going to have anybody upper level that's going to be there. And again, my guess is about half the team send at least a scout. I don't think anybody sends a head coach. I don't think anybody sends a GM. I don't think anybody obviously sends their owner. But because of that, I just don't see a scenario where somebody's going to be like, yeah, you know what? We really need him. Now, there's teams out there that need a quarterback. I mean, the Lions, who knows what's going on with their quarterback situation? The Colts, who knows what's going on with their situation? Chicago, who knows what's going on with Mitchell Trubisky? Like, there are teams who need a quarterback and need a capable quarterback for them to be successful, and they don't have one right now. I just think the NFL has made the scenario where it's going to be almost impossible for him to put his best foot forward because they are dictating everything about this workout. But again, I think the reason they're doing that is because they are heading off a second possible lawsuit from Colin Kaepernick against the NFL. We'll see what happens. I mean, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If the reason you boycotted the NFL was because Colin Kaepernick, you're an idiot. And secondly, he's talented enough to play in this league. Now, he hasn't played football in 3 years, so that's going to make things different. But by all accounts, he's been in shape, and by all accounts, he can make all the throws still. It's hard for me to imagine where, take his political stance out of it, he wouldn't be employed in the NFL. I just don't know if this workout is going to give him the opportunity to do it just because of how the NFL has dictated it. I don't know. Sorry for the rant, but that's how I feel about it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens from it. I just don't know if he's going to get signed out of it.
It's a very poorly organized public relations stunt.
Yeah,
to me that's all it is.
It's the NFL's CYA.
You said it. It's there. It's exactly what it is. It's the NFL covering its ass so that they can now say we provided you a workout opportunity. You never said it had to be on a day that was convenient for you, that would give you a chance to sign.
Yeah, before the trade deadline or before the season even.
Yeah, Mr. Kaepernick, you never said we couldn't set up a workout that would basically set you up for no success.
Yeah.
We just had to provide you the opportunity. So to give him a workout, not only give him 2 hours to decide, the NFL has said, apparently reports out, the NFL will not provide Kaepernick's representation with a list of the teams that are coming.
Yeah.
You're probably going to have a bunch of representatives wearing all black with no team logos because they're definitely afraid to be associated with the guy.
It's still playing with fire. Like the public relations side of it is still playing with fire a bit. I think the scenarios bode well for.
This is in my mind, every team that's going to send a representative, as you said, it's going to be a low-level scout, somebody that probably has never even met the head coach or general manager or owner, that's going to come back to the head scout and say, looks good, good shape, makes good live arm still, don't know if it's worth the PR.
Yeah,
and because of that, he's not going to get signed.
And maybe it's not. But
I hope he does because he's better. I would dare say, even 3 years out of the league, he's better than some of the garbage that other teams are toting out at quarterback right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're trotting out Colt McCoy in Washington a couple weeks ago. Like
Brian Hoyer in Indianapolis.
Yeah, Brian Hoyer still employed.
Jeff Driscoll had to start for the freaking Detroit Lions.
Come on, say what you want about it. He was blackballed. Now his 3 years out of the league is going to make a big difference in his marketability.
Time heals all wounds.
Is the headache is the juice worth the squeeze? And we'll find out.
Every
Saturday,
team is going to say no. He is not going to get signed.
I don't think he is, just because he's not put. It's the worst case scenario. I mean, it's the best worst case scenario. He gets to get in front of NFL scouts, but it's at the worst timing of the year.
Yep.
You can't trade anybody you would put him on your roster with. It's not before the season. It's on their terms. Nobody can come and watch him in person. He's not going to field questions from head coaches and GMs and owners. He's going to field questions from either the media or a low-level scout.
And the other thing is, I would guarantee you one of the first 2 or 3 questions that every single team would ask him for, if we sign you, you're going to stand for the anthem?
100%. Like that is going to be the number one question he gets asked.
Yeah.
Is will he or will he not stand for the anthem? And again, we're not going to get into the politics of it, but that should not be the deciding factor. And if you want to go back to 2009, before teams were even on the field, before the National Guard said, hey, we're going to pay you millions of dollars to force your players to be on the field and stand at attention
to wear the camo,
and raise no money for the troops just for a PR stunt, we can talk about that. But people don't want to hear that. All they want to hear is Colin Kaepernick being disrespectful. And again, it's the first question he's going to get, right or wrong. And I don't think teams are going to think the juice is worth the squeeze, despite the fact that he is a better quarterback than guys who are still starting on Sunday 3 years later.
He's better than guys that are starting. He's damn sure better than the whole host of backups in the league. Yes. Not even third string, number twos.
I mean, Robert Griffin III is still employed as a quarterback in the NFL.
Thank you.
I mean, come on.
Thank you.
Let's be serious. The Sanchez just retired. Like, you're telling me he's not a better quarterback than Sanchez was? Come on. Anyway, teams who don't have quarterback problems, but they got winning game problems right now. They got
other problems, yeah. Kansas City and L.A. Kansas City losing a thriller to Tennessee. That was a great football game.
Who knew? Mike Vrabel could get the
Well, the one thing I will say, he's got to
keep it moving in the right direction.
He's got a freaking Mack truck for a running back.
Doesn't hurt.
And also, as we've seen through the last couple of years, Kansas City's defense can be rather porous at times. On the other side, the LA Rams, this is a Jekyll and Hyde team.
Holy cow, what are they doing?
From home and on the road, mainly because Jared Goff absolutely sucks on the road. It is amazing how much talent they have, and yet how bad they are on the road at scoring. And we saw it this past week in Pittsburgh. By the way, Pittsburgh's won 4 in a row. Who knew?
Yeah, I got a scenario for you at the end of the game. At the end of the show here,
you're looking at these two teams going forward, and the question you see is who has bigger cause for concern. I think it's the LA Rams.
Unquestionably.
And for the reason being, as I said, Jared Goff absolutely sucks on the road. Yeah. Absolutely sucks. And the problem that they're going to have right now, they're 2.5, 3 games behind first place in the West. They're behind San Francisco, by 3 games. They're 2.5 behind Seattle. They're not catching either one of those two teams.
I don't
so the
know
only
if they are.
the only chance they have at the playoffs is the wild card. At what point during
Oh,
this
and by
season?
the way, they're not in the wild card position right now either.
They can still get there.
They can get there, but right now they're not in the wild card.
But
seat
even
either.
so, if they get in, you really trust all of a sudden Jared Goff to figure it out on the road in the playoffs
they
because
gotta go on the road
you're going to
for
go on the
every
road.
game. Yeah.
I think that's unquestionably for me. It's the Rams. Now Kansas City's defense, they got some stuff they got to figure out. This has been a problem for Andy Reid since Patrick Mahomes is getting all the attention and all the glory, as well he should. He's phenomenal. But it doesn't help overlook the fact that their defense has been rather porous at times, as we saw last year in the playoffs, as we've seen through a number of years during the playoffs for Andy Reid. He really struggles to win home playoff games.
Yeah.
And that's not even a sure thing this year.
Well, at this point,
Probably they're still going to win the West, more than likely. But right now, they're sitting 1 game ahead of the Oakland Raiders. For
Oakland Raiders.
For the West. So they're probably still going to win the West. Don't be shocked if they don't. If they don't get things figured out defensively, Mahomes is going to be fine. Their offense is going to put up points. That's not going to be a problem. It's can they get stops late in the year? And right now, I'm not sure that they can because we've seen, you give up 35 points to Ryan Tannehill. Now, I know Derrick Henry, they couldn't stop him, and that's another problem.
Can't stop the run game.
Couldn't stop the run. That's going to be a big problem.
And they're going to play some teams that run the ball pretty well here coming down the stretch.
They are. And so for me, for that reason, I am really worried if I'm a Rams fan right now because you are not going to have a home playoff game. You're not going to have multiple home playoff games. You're going on the road, and Jared Goff on the road sucks.
Yeah, I agree. I'm more concerned about the Rams. I'm concerned about both, but again, the reason I'm not as concerned about the Chiefs is the Chiefs do lead their division. If they weren't winning the division, they would be in the wild card spot. The Rams are not in either right now. I don't know how the Rams jump either the Seahawks, and clearly I don't think they pass the 49ers. And you look at the schedules down the stretch, they stack up a little bit better for the Rams, but the Rams, they got 3 games in the middle that aren't great. Now the Chiefs are giving up a home game this week. They're playing in Mexico City instead of at home for the Chargers. They have a late season bye week, which I think really benefits them, especially with Mahomes' injury. They got the Week 11 bye week. They finished with the Raiders. Now this is where it could get tough for them. At the Patriots, home for the Broncos, who are terrible. They got to go to the Bears the week of Christmas. They got to play at the Bears the Sunday before Christmas.
So the Bears can't score.
Bears can't score, but it's also Soldier Field the week before Christmas, and I've been to Soldier Field the week before Christmas, and it's freaking cold. Like when we went, my offensive line coach, who's now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Harold Goodwin, was an O-line coach for the Bears. I believe at the time it was the coldest kickoff temperature in the history of Soldier Field. It was minus 16 at kickoff. Sunny as it's ever been. Minus 16 degrees. We got hot chocolates.
Did you wear sleeves?
And they were. I did.
Pansy.
I
you
did,
pansy.
One thing I did not do. I only wore one layer of pants, which was really silly of me. I should have had like sweatpants under the pants. I didn't do that.
Should have went thermals.
That was a little chilly.
Thermals, yeah. But
It was still our hot chocolates froze.
You wore sleeves, you pansy.
Know. Now there was a collection of Bears fans who were in the front row, no shirts on for almost the entire game.
Oh, Beastie Boys, they can't wear sleeves.
Much credit for them. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, cold game. Olin Kreutz was in that game. It was fun to watch him play. Anyway, that's not an easy game. The Rams' schedule doesn't shape up much better. They're playing Bears, Ravens at home, at the Cardinals, Seahawks at home, at the Cowboys, at the 49ers, and they finish with the Cardinals. But there's some losable games in there. Like we could be in a scenario where a team that played in last year's Super Bowl is not in the playoffs this year.
That schedule right now, they're staring at 9-7.
Yeah, and that's not getting in the playoffs.
No.
Not in the NFC this year.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm more concerned with the Rams just because of the position they put themselves in.
Yep.
Because the 49ers and Seahawks, again, like you mentioned, 2.5 games back of Seattle, 3 games back of the 49ers, not seeing the scenario where they get back into it ahead of either of those two teams. And I think they have to, at minimum, pass one of them to be a wild card team. I just don't see it happening. The Ravens game is going to be a tough one. They still have to play the Seahawks. They have to play at the 49ers. They have to play at the Cowboys, who somehow seem to figure it out. Still can't extend their quarterback. I don't know why. Jason Garrett's not getting extension either. It looks like the Cowboys are going to make the playoffs. Again, I'm not sold on them paying.
Because their division sucks.
Yeah, their division sucks, and I'm not sold on paying Dak Prescott a bunch of money anyway. But, the Rams schedule does not shape up to make it look like they're going to end up in the playoffs this year. And
as you said,
definitely cause for concern.
They're behind Seattle. You also touched on they're going to take on the Rams. Still have the Ravens and the Seahawks on their schedule to close out the year.
Yeah.
And so let's touch on their two quarterbacks, because Russell Wilson, was tremendous last week and beating San Francisco in a game that you could argue probably should have ended up in a tie, but nevertheless, it was
kickers.
a great football game
Because of kickers.
Exactly.
It ended up a tie. That's why you don't hire a kid off the street to kick field goals for you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me.
A little too much there because Robbie Gold was out hurt.
Well, sorry, Robbie Gold, but
of course,
don't hire kickers off the street.
Lamar Jackson against the Bengals, that was varsity against freshmen.
That wasn't even fair.
No, it wasn't.
It was straight video game mode for Lamar Jackson.
That notwithstanding, if it came down to these two for the MVP, and that's not saying it will, but for this
at this point, I think it's only between these two. I don't see anybody else right now. Now we got 6 weeks to play, but right now I don't see any other player being in the discussion between these two. Pat Mahomes has missed games. Now, statistically, he's going to have statistics. Aaron Rodgers, but they're Green Bay can't figure out.
Tommy?
But it's Brady.
Tommy Brady?
And they're playing in the weakest division in football.
You
bastard. I don't see any other player right now who's in the discussion between these two.
Okay, so who's your MVP then? If it's between these two, who's your MVP?
Proximity and what he's done, and I'll give credit where credit's due, because I thought teams would figure him out a little more than they have thus far. I got to give it to Lamar Jackson. I really thought there would be a somewhat of a sophomore slump, a little bit of a down period when teams started to figure him out. It looks like video game mode. Like, again, playing against the hapless Bengals, but you watch some of the things he does, and I hate to throw out the scenario or the name or the comparison, but it's not that dissimilar to a guy like Michael Vick. Like, the stuff he can do, nobody else in the league can do right now. And Russell Wilson's really, really good. Russell Wilson's really talented. Pat Mahomes is really, really talented. Those guys can sling it. But the way he's running the football, the one run he had against the Bengals where he spun out of three guys trying to tackle him, that's the kind of stuff that he does weekly that I don't know if we've seen consistently since Michael Vick. The kid's a freak. He can do a lot of things. And again, I said it last year. I thought teams would figure him out better than they have. And they haven't thus far.
No.
The kid is really good.
I give credit to Greg Roman. He's built an offense for Lamar Jackson. How about they call it the Heisman package with he and Mark Ingram and RG3 running this read option.
I know. That is kind of cool.
But when you're playing the 0-8 Bengals, that's a perfect time to pull it out because they don't have the damn clue on how to stop it.
You can bust out anything you want against the Bengals. Yeah. And it gives teams something else to practice for, which is kind of fun.
Here are the numbers again, comparing the two. And again, they're very comparable across the board. Russell Wilson has more passing yards, but Lamar Jackson's probably going to go over 1,000 rushing yards.
I mean, that's the thing, and again,
he's going to be the only one to
do the Michael Vick comparison.
He's going to be over 2,000 passing yards, over 1,000 rushing yards. I would give a slight edge still to Russell Wilson, simply for the fact that you look at Russell Wilson's roster, and can you name me somebody that they have on their roster offensively other than Josh Gordon, who they just signed?
I agree. Russell Wilson has been the guy for that much longer in Seattle.
You take him off that team, and they are a top 5 draft pick.
I agree. I don't know if there's a better head coach quarterback relationship in the NFL than Russell Wilson. Tommy, and you got Sean Payton and Drew Brees, but if you look at
they're a perfect marriage.
Them together and the success that they've had. Despite, like you mentioned, the roster around them, You take Russell Wilson off that team, and they are a severely worse team than they are. I don't know if you take Tom Brady, and we saw it with Matt Castle. You take Tom Brady off the Patriots, they're still a pretty good football team, and they still probably win that division. You take Sean Payton out, or you take Drew Brees out in New Orleans.
They still won.
They won 4 games in a row.
Yeah.
Like, you take Russell Wilson out for 4 games, they're going 0-4.
Well, and you could say the same thing with Lamar Jackson. If he goes out and you got to go with RG3, how many games?
You're going 0-4.
There you go.
RG3, again, the fact that he's still employed in the NFL blows my mind.
One of the things that also leans me towards Russell Wilson, too, is that Lamar Jackson has, for my mind, the best set of tight ends in football. Not necessarily the best tight end in football, but Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst, and the fact that you look at the numbers going a little deeper. The Ravens wide receivers are 31st or 32nd in targets, receptions, and yards. Statistically, one of the worst receiving corps in football, and yet this offense cannot be stopped.
Yeah.
Because his tight ends are so good.
Yeah.
Top to bottom. As I said, Travis Kelce, other guys, Kittle out in San Francisco, great individual tight ends, but the best tight end core to me is there in Baltimore. And also the fact that Mark Ingram, as I told you before the season started, Mark Ingram was a pretty darn good addition for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah,
because
he doesn't suck.
He sets up everything else for Lamar Jackson. So I think for that reason, I give a slight edge to Russell Wilson. This is splitting hairs.
Yeah.
Between the two of them, and who knows if they continue on their runs, they may finish as co-MVPs.
Yeah, I mean
that wouldn't shock me either.
Seeing how they finish, like if it's going to be the resume of teams they've beat, and obviously, Russell kind of got the signature win, beating San Francisco,
but you
on
also
the road.
Lamar Jackson
beat the Patriots.
They beat the shit out of the Patriots.
So It may come down to just what team has a better record.
Yeah.
Like at this point, it might just be.
I wouldn't hate if they were co-MVPs.
No, I don't think anybody could disagree with it at this point. I think that's a scenario that could likely happen.
Let's move on to game picks here. The Baltimore Ravens have another potential big win for the resume this week. They're hosting the Houston Texans. Sunday, 1 o'clock. Baltimore favored by 4 in this one. Deshaun Watson has been very, very good all season long. The offensive line has slowly gotten better.
Keeping him slightly cleaner.
He's not being hospitalized every week now because he's not getting sacked 8 times a week. So they're slowly getting better. Laramie Tunsil's figuring things out there to help block for him. One of the things to keep an eye on in this game for me is that Houston right now is converting on third down at 47%. Which would be a franchise record for them if they continue with that pace. So keep an eye on that if you're watching this. Can the Ravens get off the field on third down? Because Watson, more of a thrower than Lamar Jackson, but he can certainly make plays with his legs too. Just not as dynamic as Lamar Jackson does. Of course, there's nobody like that, I think, to your point, since Michael Vick. I think Baltimore still, though, is just playing too well right now. And a home game like this, I think Baltimore wins by a touchdown, even winning 30-23. Deshaun Watson will keep the Texans in it because Deshaun Watson's good enough to keep the Texans in it for sure the entire way. But right now, I think the role that the Ravens are on just a little too much right now. I think Baltimore wins this one and tries to put the AFC North to bed.
Yeah, I think Baltimore wins this one again, 5 in a row. I think they make it 6 in a row. They're playing at home. They're playing really well right now. Obviously, basically a warm-up game last week in Cincinnati. Lamar Jackson finishes the game wearing sunglasses instead of his helmet. Always makes life a little bit easier. I just still don't trust Houston's offensive line as much. Baltimore, again, back to the success Lamar Jackson's had. He has a really good offensive line in front of him. Like you mentioned, a really good group of tight ends, keeping him clean.
They've signed Domata Peko.
They just signed Domata Peko. They got my buddy Parker Anger over there in Baltimore. 2 midseason signings, 2 of my buddies that I've known for a while.
I always mention Peko because he's a great dude.
He is a great dude, and having him in your locker room doesn't hurt. Never sucks to have Domata Peko around your team and your franchise. I like what Baltimore's doing. I like keeping Lamar Jackson clean, and I like Baltimore's defense still. It's not the defense of old. It's not the old shutdown Ray Lewis, Ed Reed defense.
Their corners though are nasty.
But yeah, their secondary. I do not want to throw the ball against their secondary, and they still got a defensive line who probably matches up pretty well against the Texans' offensive line. I like Baltimore winning this one at home.
Let's stay in the AFC North, and actually a game that takes place tonight. And it's fun to kind of make this sort of a rivalry again.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, as we said before, they've won 4 in a row. They are at Cleveland, who got off the schneid last week and may have saved Freddie Kitchens' job for at least another week.
No kidding. Like, what is going on? And like,
it's a game. Pittsburgh's 5-4, Cleveland's 3-6. It's a game Cleveland has to win if they want.
I think they both have to win at this point.
I'm going to give the edge to Cleveland here a little bit more because they're hanging on by the skin of their teeth. They got to win this one. I think they can get after Mason Rudolph and cause some problems for him. I think this is going to be a rather low-scoring game, more on the defensive side. I say Cleveland wins 23-17, and maybe they decide to use Odell Beckham tonight because they really haven't used him a whole lot this season, maybe not to his liking. This may be his only year in Cleveland. Who knows? But I think Cleveland has just enough defensively to get it done tonight and beat Pittsburgh.
I agree. I think Cleveland's defense is just a little bit better. I still don't. Mason Rudolph hasn't looked bad in relief of Ben Roethlisberger this season. I trust Cleveland a little more just because they seem to have figured it out last week. The game against the Bills, obviously aided by 2 missed field goals. One thing that Cleveland still can't quite figure out how to do is score in the red zone, particularly inside the 5-yard line. God, they get so many chances to score inside the 5, and they end up taking the 4th down or getting shut down on 4th down. The Browns just can't figure it out how to score in the red zone. But I like them at home. I like them to continue, kind of turning things around. I don't see a scenario where they get back to the playoffs. I think they at minimum would have to win 6 of their last 7. I don't know if that happens, but obviously I think it does help. I think they win tonight against Pittsburgh. Got a question to pose for you though. Speaking of Pittsburgh, if Pittsburgh makes the playoffs, is Mike Tomlin the coach of the year?
Oh man, oh god, I hate thinking about.
But
that.
Is he?
He's gonna have a really strong case.
Like if they somehow start in 1-4, if they somehow
have a really strong case,
turn it around, make it to the playoffs with a backup quarterback with Mason Rudolph under center, missing Antonio Brown, just can't seem to stay healthy at any position at this point. They're missing Benny Snell tonight. He's going to be out. Is he the coach of the year if they make the playoffs?
He has to be right there.
He's got to be up there.
I hate it. And the one thing I'll give him credit for, too, is Minkah Fitzpatrick has turned out to be a hell of a pickup.
Yeah.
He's been fantastic.
Well, at the time, we were like, what are they doing? But it turns out winning 4 games in a row doesn't look like such a terrible pick anymore.
It's starting to work out. He's been stellar for them. Their defense is what's winning them games.
Well, it is. But, again, is Mike Tomlin
I know.
Is Mike Tomlin to credit for that? And again, after the 1-4 start and missing your number 1 receiver from last year, and obviously Mason Rudolph starting instead of Ben Roethlisberger, who's a future Hall of Famer, I think the scenario sets up pretty well for him. Now he's going to have some competition, obviously, out in San Francisco.
Kyle Shanahan.
Hard to argue against Kyle Shanahan now.
John Harbaugh.
John Harbaugh with what he's doing with the Ravens doesn't suck over there either. It's.
How about
the scenario sets up pretty well.
How about on the opposite end, the owner of the Jets coming out and saying Adam Gase is coming back next year?
Oh, God.
10 games into year 1, he has to come out and say he's coming back.
The old vote of confidence.
Which basically means he's getting 1 month next year and he's getting canned.
Yeah, the old vote of confidence. Again, you're trying to keep up with the Patriots. It makes everybody look bad.
That's the thing with Adam Gase.
Jets just can't figure it out.
The entire time Adam Gase has been a coordinator or head coach, because he's always been a play caller as head coach, he's had 1 offense that finished in the top 20. You know who his quarterback was? Peyton Manning.
Yeah, well, that doesn't suck.
There you go.
Hall of Famer quarterbacks don't suck.
Yeah, and it hasn't necessarily worked out with him and trying to develop Sam Darnold, which is really sad because Darnold's
talented.
He's got talent.
Apparently, the Jets are where quarterbacks go to die right now because they just can't seem to get it figured out. Maybe should have employed.
When's the last time they've had one?
Mark Sanchez was the last one taking to the. Actually,
yeah.
I believe I saw a stat the other day. Mark Sanchez was the last quarterback in the AFC North not named Tom Brady
AFC
to win
East.
AFC East, not named Tom Brady to win a playoff game. Mark Sanchez was the last one to win a playoff game in the AFC East, not named Tom Brady.
What are we doing, people?
It's just
right.
astonishing.
Let's go here. Final game pick. It's always our favorite time to make a pick because it's this week's rendition of
Will they cover
the Cincinnati Bungles?
The other side of the Ohio coin, we did the Ohio college football team. Can they cover against Rutgers? Now we're on the other side of the coin. Can the NFL franchise, who one would assume are not very good, cover their 10.5 point spread at the Oakland Raiders? No, they don't.
Ryan Finley looked like a guy starting his first game.
Yeah, Ryan Finley looked like he'd been thrown to the wolves.
You put him in there against the best secondary in the NFL. What'd you expect? I do like the fact that they decided to run the ball with Joe Mixon.
Yeah, they gave Joe Mixon
first time this season. He ran the ball over 20 times in a game.
Had over 60 yards for the first time in the season, I believe it was.
He finished with like 114 yards in that game, so they got that figured out. The problem is their defense can't stop anything. And I start to wonder if some guys on that defense, some prominent guys on the defense have already quit.
Well, some of them were already on the chopping block. We saw that this week when the Bengals decided to cut a starting linebacker.
Preston Brown. Preston Brown. Reasons for that. Preston Brown was awful.
He was awful. They also just paid him $14.5 million to cut him.
They did
the same season after being the starter. Now he ranked, what was it? I believe he's second worst middle linebacker in football this year. He ranked at Pro Football Focus, put him second worst middle linebacker.
They're
in football.
willing to carry $2.5 million in dead cap space the next 2 years to get rid of him. That's how bad he is.
Yeah, they need a lot of help.
Oakland is. Been up and down. Obviously, their record indicates that 5-4. Josh Jacobs, I think, can have a field day against the Bengals front seven because, again, I firmly believe there are guys on that defense who have been there for a while that have quit because they're already getting their money.
What are you playing for? You're getting your paycheck, so what else are you playing for? You're helping the franchise get the number one pick. That's all there is to it.
And you punished Andy Dalton by benching him, even though it was no fault of his own. Well, the team is where they are.
No, but probably needed because you have to figure out your solution. He's not going to be your quarterback.
I understand it. The terrible thing about the Dalton thing that we weren't on to comment on it was the fact that they told him 3 hours before the trade deadline
his birthday.
On his birthday, 3 hours before the trade deadline, they were benching him, so it gave his agent no time to try to see if there was any interest out there.
Because he was useful. He would have been useful to someone.
Absolutely,
100% would have been useful to a different.
You could have somebody probably would have given you like a third-round draft pick.
100%, you could have gotten something, but in a typical Bengals move, they did nothing. They were shopping no one, and two, you did Dalton dirty, and we weren't on the air. Complete BS move by the Bengals, unsurprisingly so. No one's surprised by that, but. Tell the kid he's getting benched on his birthday with 3 hours before the trade deadline when his agent has no chance to move him. Because guess what? Now, especially 2 weeks later, a lot of franchises could use Andy Dalton. Like Driscoll starting in
that's the thing
Detroit.
Too.
You don't think Detroit would have taken a flyer on Andy Dalton?
Andy Dalton is on the hook for $17 million on the cap next year. You're not keeping him.
You're not keeping him. Let him go. Get something back for him. But typical Bengals fashion, they're not re-signing A.J. Green. Didn't get anything for him. You're not re-signing Geno Atkins. Didn't get anything for him. But again, Bengals doing what Bengals do, not getting draft picks, even though you have about 7 holes to fill as starter. Not getting extra draft picks for guys who you aren't going to re-sign anyway. So Andy Dalton's gone for free. AJ Green's gone for free, and you got nothing back for them. Typical Bengals fashion. That's what they do.
And
they're going out to Oakland.
You'll have 35,000 show up the rest of the year because you have about 34,000
the shot of the stadium in the first quarter with like 20% of the seats filled is just typical Mike Brown. Like he doesn't give a fudge.
And you go back to when the FCC got rid of the blackout rule, why Mike Brown was very anti that. Because he knew once that started happening, nobody's going to show up.
And they don't. Well, guess what? When you're trying to charge people $120 a game to come in and watch that, nobody's doing that.
No.
Nobody's doing it.
When you're blatantly trying not to win.
When you're trying not to win and you're not putting a competitive team on the field.
That's the thing.
This might be the season I finally take my boys to a game because there's nobody around to say stupid stuff.
That was the one,
I might be able to enjoy the game.
That was the one thing. My wife and I went to the Bengals game against Arizona because she bought tickets for me for my birthday or our anniversary, whatever the case may be. I don't
Not
remember.
at face value, I hope, right?
No, of course
Okay,
not.
good.
Of course not. She knows where to go. I've instructed her where to go to buy tickets.
Yeah.
And we thought it was going to be the one chance to see a win. But number two, when we went there, it was, there was a family in front of us that had probably 4 or 5 or 6 little kids there. Perfect environment.
Yeah.
No problems whatsoever. Generally, with the NFL, you think if you want to take the kids, preseason's the only time to do it because people just aren't that into it.
No.
And you can take a family there.
The amount of drunk idiots who you see at a normal NFL football Sunday, particularly if your team is competitive,
and I think also
is a lot more.
Right. If you decide to go, this would be the year to do it too, because there's going to be nobody there. But number two, the fans that are there, they know there's no hope.
Yeah.
They're there to watch football because it's
just football to watch.
Something to do
You
on
don't have
Sunday.
to hear about the guy complaining about why you're running that play.
Something to do.
That guy doesn't care anymore.
Right.
He's just there.
So I forgot to mention I have Oakland winning 30-13 because the Bengals have no reason to try.
No, I didn't do scores. Of course,
I know you don't. But I forgot. I hadn't mentioned mine.
13 might be a little high for the Bengals there. I don't
Something
know.
will happen. Brandon Wilson's actually a pretty good return man. He may return a kick for a touchdown.
And I also, quick vote of credit for our boy John Gruden out there in Oakland, doing something. Like I don't know what it is, but they're doing something.
They're building for their move to Vegas next year.
Yeah, they're not.
That's the funny thing about it. They may be a playoff team, and it's it kiss off Oakland. We're leaving again. Of course, in 10 years they'll be back in Oakland again.
Yeah,
because we know how
the end part of their
works.
schedule looks pretty good for them too. They got to go to the Jets, the Chiefs, Titans, Jaguars, Chargers, Broncos. Like they're probably going to make the playoffs.
Very winnable games.
They're probably going to make the
They
playoffs.
can make the playoffs.
Good for John Gruden, just in time to go to Vegas if they get the stadium built, if it gets finished.
Allegedly.
Otherwise, they might be playing at a high school stadium next year by the time that all gets said and done.
They may rent out the 49ers Stadium, which is in Santa Clara, which is like 45 minutes from San Francisco, but they're still called San Francisco.
No reason to alienate fans anymore. It doesn't matter. They're
like
going to be playing in Vegas eventually. You can alienate the black.
Can we call them the San Francisco 49ers of Santa Clara?
Well, they do
like
that
they do
with the
Angels.
Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
By the way, we went to a game this summer. It's actually a really cool environment. Great stadium over there. I like the Angels stadium.
Go back to being the California Angels. Just make it right.
Just do it. Like go back to the days of the Angels in the outfield. Flapping the wings.
Tony Danza. His arm must be tired. He's thrown 156 pitches. I don't know why I remember that random ass line from that movie. All right. Anyway, you see it breaking down here because we're out of time. He's out of beer. Follow us on the Twitter handles at the bottom of the screen, facebook.com/Fumblegate. We thank you so much for joining us. We'll have a bunch of more stuff to talk about. Will Colin Kaepernick get signed? Who the hell knows?
Well, if he does, it'll give us something to talk about. That's
absolutely. For sure. We'll row the boat, go to 10-0. We'll find that out. Will Ohio State cover the 52-point spread at Rutgers by halftime? And will the Bengals continue to be the absolute?
I mean, 0-16 is something to aspire for. They can match the Lions from 2007. They got a shot at it. 08.
We're going for 0-16, folks. Keep the faith, Cincinnati. You're going for 0-16.
I hope there's a parade when it happens.
And they'll probably draft a running back with a number 1 pick.
Yeah, skip Chase Young, skip getting a franchise quarterback. We'll just go for some random defensive tackle from nowhere. Whatever. That's Mike Brown. Mike Brown doing Mike Brown things. Yeah, screw the trade deadline. We don't need more draft picks. We just don't have any middle linebackers or an offensive line that's competent. But we don't need draft picks. Whatever. I'm Mike Brown. Give me my playoff check. Thank you for revenue sharing, huh, Mike Brown? Whatever.
There's going to be an episode where I'm just going to let you go off on Mike Brown the entire time because I know you've got some stories.
No, it's just Mike. Nothing against the man as a person because he still likes me and he still says hi to me when I see him, but he does not know how to run an NFL franchise, that's for sure.
We'll let him go on a Mike Brown reign at some point here on Fumblegate.
Well, he might watch the show if he wants to. Again, Twitter, Facebook, like us up.
Follow us, give us a like, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next week on Fumblegate, and more ranting will happen and more terrible kickers and all that stuff.
Fire up Chips, beat the Cardinals.